It's about to become more expensive to sell on Etsy. Will that discourage shop owners, and does this mean higher prices? Welcome to the Sewing Report. I'm Jen. We're just going to get right into it. Etsy just dropped a big announcement that will be affecting all shop owners. They put this out. Also, the timing of this is a little tone deaf. I'm releasing this a few days after the announcement dropped. They put this out the same day that Russia invaded Ukraine, so that does seem a little ill-timed to me. A lot of people got the email. You can also find this on the Etsy website with the title, Our Continuing Investment in Etsy's Growth, a message from Etsy CEO Josh Silverman. They kind of go into how sales increased 23% compared to 2019. And at first glance, it kind of sounds like this is a good message. But then they drop the bomb, and that is on April 11th, Etsy will be increasing the current 5% transaction fee to 6.5%. That's a pretty significant jump, especially for a company that claims they made more money last year than ever before. So in 2021, Etsy says they showed more than 90 million active buyers worldwide, that there's an alternative to big box automated shopping. What's changing as Etsy is claiming that this increase from 5% to 6.5% is going to allow them to make improvements in 3 key areas, right? Bringing more buyers to Etsy. Etsy says they spent nearly $600 million on marketing last year. Really? $600 million? And the company apparently wants to invest even more on TV commercials, influencers, tastemakers, billboards, podcast advertising, and email marketing. Okay, first of all, my question is, does anyone not know what Etsy is at this point? Like, I'm serious. Unless you've been living under a rock, you probably know what Etsy is. $600 million is a lot of money. And I'm just wondering, like, if you're a consumer, is seeing Etsy mentioned on a podcast or by an influencer, is that going to affect your decision as to whether or not you shop on Etsy? I don't really need that type of brand awareness. The company is already very well known, and I just think that seems like a waste of money to me. Sorry, Etsy, but just my opinion there. They also, now this is a big gripe among people on Reddit. If you want to see kind of the tea about Etsy, I would recommend you go to r/Etsy or r/Etsy sellers. That's where a lot of people will kind of talk-ish about Etsy. And one common complaint I see from a lot of shop owners is the lack of seller support. So according to this announcement, Etsy is going to grow the support team by more than 20%, so you can get help more quickly and easily, faster email responses, expanded access to live chat, and prioritization of your most urgent requests. So the thing I've commonly seen, and in full disclosure, I have not personally had to reach out to Etsy support myself, so I don't have first experience, but I read a lot of threads from people who have, and there's a lot of frustration over the lack of support for sellers. Apparently, there's a pretty decent system in place like email and even phone support for people who are buying on Etsy, but not for sellers. I guess there used to be a phone number and they got rid of it. And there's also been a couple email addresses floating around that like no one ever gets back to you. When sellers try to reach out to Etsy for issues, they get like a bot response, no response. And it seems like it's really hard to talk to an actual person. So people were joking around when I was seeing, like, there's so many threads on Reddit about this news. And folks were like, okay, so 20% on top of 0 is still 0. I'm taking this announcement with a grain of salt. I don't know how much things will get better for sellers. And towards the end of this video, I'll talk more about my own experiences and what I think the company should do. Now, I am a seller and a buyer on Etsy. I am really glad that I started this Etsy shop, so at least now I can relate to some of these issues and I know firsthand what it's like to have an Etsy shop, and I feel a little more equipped to talk about issues like this. Okay, so let's go back to the wonderful announcement. Also, they're gonna apparently continue to keep Etsy unique. I think people already know what Etsy is. We'll build on last year's roughly $40 million investment in teams and technology that help make our marketplace a safe and secure destination for handmade, vintage, and special items. This year, we'll expand our efforts to remove listings that don't meet our policies and help you resolve issues with buyers. will also make significant improvements in services and tools that will make it easier and smoother to grow your business. For instance, we'll be launching a new seller app with enhanced features. Now, there's like 3 apps for Etsy, and I'm still confused on what the difference is. Like, there's one for buying stuff on Etsy, and then there's at least 2 for sellers. I have all 3 of them, and I feel like this should be streamlined because it's really like confusing AF to me. But they say they'll make it easier for you to manage your orders, connect with buyers, understand how your business is doing. These are some of the great things we'll invest in to keep Etsy a beloved, trusted, and growing marketplace. We don't take fee changes lightly, and we believe that these investments will enable Etsy and our seller community to continue to grow. Thank you for making Etsy a one-of-a-kind marketplace. Josh Silverman. So they do have like an FAQ down below. Why are you increasing the transaction fee? Like, they haven't said like our costs have increased. I want to know, like, if they're making more money and more profit than ever, why are they raising the fees for sellers? And the transaction fee, so if you're not familiar, every sale you make, there's a listing fee of 20 cents. There's also a transaction fee of currently 5%. Also, if you got the sale via offsite ads, the fee is like 12 to 15%, depending on whether you have mandatory offsite ads or it's optional. And I'll go into that a little bit later. And then there's also a payment processing fee. There is a significant cost to selling on Etsy. Now, here's the kicker. If you do want to share your feedback on updates, there is a survey, all right, that you can fill out. So if you're not super happy with this and you sell or buy on Etsy, I would encourage everyone to take the survey, and I'll link all of the websites I'm showing down below in the description box. Take the survey if you have a strong opinion on this, and, blast them on social media. Hit them up, tag them on Instagram, Twitter, wherever, and let the company know what you think, because it seems like a lot of people are not super thrilled about this. This is one way. Make your voice known. You know what I'm saying here? I'm noticing this with a lot of corporations where they will raise prices or say, hey, due to inflation and the rising price of stuff, we have to raise prices for customers. But then in their shareholder reports, they'll record like record profits. We made more money than ever, all that sort of jazz. But then they're also trying to tell you that they're raising prices due to their higher costs. So it's like either one or the other. Are you making lots of money, or are you so strapped for cash that you need to raise costs to consumers? Just a question I'm asking here. So let's bring this guy up here. Now, this is what they're sending out to their shareholders. They report a 16.5% increase in consolidated fourth quarter year over year, your typical corporate mumbo jumbo, whatever. They're saying they had a record $4.2 billion. I believe this is like a gross merchandise sale, something like that. Again, they're saying that Etsy made boatloads of money. So if that's the case, I just want to know why they decided to raise costs for sellers. And I'll link to all of this stuff below so you can read this firsthand, make up your own mind. So again, it seems like compared to, look at this, compared to 2020, fourth quarter, millions of dollars more in sales. So I just want to know, if they're doing so well, why do they need to raise the prices for sellers? Which in turn, I absolutely think this is going to mean higher prices for you, the consumer. So even if you don't sell on Etsy and you just shop on Etsy, this is probably going to affect you. And I'm already seeing a lot of backlash online forums like Reddit where sellers are really, really upset. And I think that there's for a good reason. So I do want to talk a little bit too about some of the aspects that Etsy mentioned in the announcement that, okay, I've already told you what I think about the marketing. I think it's bullshit. I'm just going to say that. Like, why can't they use that $600+ million to actually support sellers, or to at least not raise the costs for sellers? Again, I just don't understand how doing Etsy ads or paying for like paid promotion is really gonna do much. Like, again, they already have the brand recognition. It's not like no one's ever heard of Etsy. I think that's stupid. As far as the seller support, now, if they actually did take this marketing money and put that towards seller support, after dealing with Etsy on a seller's level, I absolutely think they need to have some form of real seller support, like not just an artificial intelligence bot thing, but real people. And I would love to see them have like an actual email support. I'm seeing a lot of stories where people will actually reach out to Etsy, get no response for weeks or months. That's pretty unacceptable, especially since if you want to get their whole star seller badge, you have to respond as a seller to messages within 24 hours, but yet the company does not hold itself to their own standards. I can see why there's a lot of frustration about that, and I do think they should have some sort of live chat. A lot of companies do live chat. I think that's a great option so you don't have to call them on the phone. I'm not a big phone person myself, and I do think that might be a good thing. And as far as Etsy trying to enforce their own terms of service, I think that would be a good thing if they actually were able to do it in a way that makes sense and doesn't false flag a lot of shops that are not violating the policies. Because I'm also seeing a lot of sellers saying their shops were terminated or suspended for no reason. And these people, now some do violate the policies, like there's intellectual property infringement or they do sell things that they're not supposed to be. But I'm seeing a lot of stories from sellers where they really don't seem to be doing anything wrong, and their shop just gets shut down without notice or suspended without notice. And there's very little recourse for the sellers. And again, as I mentioned before, with the really non-existent seller support, that makes it really difficult if you do run into these issues to actually try to fix these problems. And I can relate too, because YouTube also sometimes has some of these issues where they use AI to enforce a lot of the policies, and sometimes it's not always accurate. Like Etsy, there's really not a good way besides like trying to spam them on Twitter to get a hold of a real person at YouTube. So a lot of the issues that I think YouTubers face, especially if you're a small channel and you don't have a point of contact there, are the same issues that sellers run into on Etsy. There are also a lot of shops, and I'm even seeing a lot of sellers complain about this, that they'll think they're buying something handmade, but they're actually getting something that's from like a drop shipper, and they're just getting a mass-produced item, but the shops are trying to pass this off as a handmade item when it's not, because then they're finding the same thing on Amazon or AliExpress or whatever. Now, if Etsy can actually crack down on these shops, I think that would be a good thing. But it seems like a lot of these shops are able to pass through the cracks and still get through. And that is watering down the reputation of Etsy, because Etsy is or was well known for having legitimate handmade items made by real people. And there was some security from a consumer standpoint that they're supporting small, local, independent businesses, when sometimes the consumers now are having a hard time sifting through what's a legitimate business and what is some sort of drop shipper. So that is an issue. And again, if they are going to raise these transaction fees from 5 to 6.5%, I would really hope that that money was going towards weeding out some of these shops that should not be on Etsy. But again, a lot of shops who are following all the policies are the ones getting hit. Again, this is kind of an opinion-based thing. This is more commentary at this point too. But I wanted to share my thoughts, especially since I do have this platform and I'm able to speak on this. I will, because this is something that will affect all of us. And in fact, I was going to be doing a video about the price of fabric and sewing supplies, because I'm seeing some increases from my end as I'm buying inventory for the Etsy shop. Now, I sell sewing supplies in the Sewing Report Etsy shop, and I've already gotten notices from several different fabric manufacturers saying that they have already or will be raising prices on the fabric yardage just due to their increased costs. And again, we're seeing this everywhere. Groceries are more expensive, gas is more expensive. These items are shipped using, trucks or planes that use gasoline. So it really does make sense that costs of everything are going up, and unfortunately, the sewing and crafts niche is no exception. We're seeing that here. In fact, I'm even noticing certain items I stock, the price for me to purchase these items has increased. So there's one item that I bought at cost for, at first I was paying like $7.50, and now that same item for me to purchase is $10. I'm feeling it too, and it's interesting to see it on the retailer side because my costs for running this Etsy shop are not small. In fact, I will be doing a follow-up video because I want to share a little bit more about the finances of my first year and a half on Etsy. In a nutshell, I believe I'm about breaking even, but there are a lot of costs to running an Etsy shop. And it's interesting because I was not aware of this before I started the shop. The other thing to keep in mind too is that this has happened the past few years, but the post, at least, in the United States here, United States Postal Service has raised the shipping prices at pretty much every year. The cost of shipping is going up for sure because a lot of shops on Etsy, myself included, feel the pressure to offer that free shipping over $35 or more. We're going to have to build in the increase in shipping costs in the price of the item. All in all, I do think this year in particular, we're going to see higher prices for fabric, supplies, handmade items in general. Just please know there's a reason for the increase in costs. And I've detailed this here on the channel as well, that all of this coupled with the new IRS threshold for reporting for the 1099Ks on online payment processors. If you're not aware of this issue, I'll link below the videos I've done on this with Sarah Kornack of Small Business Sarah and Mark II of Not Your Dad's CPA. They both had some really interesting perspectives as accountants on how this will affect people who sell anything online. But I do believe that there have been a large number of sellers of handmade items or even people who flip stuff on like eBay or Mercari or whatever. And they may not have been taking into account the cost of taxes on the pricing. I don't know. At this point, I think there are some sellers who will probably be like, this is not worth it. I'm just going to leave Etsy. I'm already seeing a lot of people on Reddit saying, I needed a motivation to do my own website. This is it. Or I'm leaving Etsy. I posted it on Instagram stories, the news, and I had one fabric website message me and saying they're gone off Etsy. They already have their own website. Now that has challenges in itself as well, but they've decided they're just gone from Etsy. That was like the last straw. So that was pretty interesting. I'm also seeing a lot of people who, once you account for all of the income tax you have to pay and the cost of maintaining your bookkeeping, like I have to get a QuickBooks account and that's like $25 a month, for some, especially smaller sellers. I think if you're doing it on a pretty small scale, all of these factors that I just mentioned are going to attribute to you possibly not wanting to do this anymore because it does take time, effort, and energy to run an Etsy shop or do any sort of online business. And the more red tape and the more obstacles you have like this, the less it makes sense. And I totally get that. So let's chat a little bit about that too, because I do think that there's going to be fewer Etsy sellers because of all of these factors. Just for your reference, when I'm selling my sewing supplies, now I do not sell things I make, I sell supplies. So typically my markup is double what I paid for it. So if I buy something for $3, I'm supposed to retail it for $6. You might be like, hey, Jen, you're doubling your money. I'm not really. So first of all, for that $6 item, I might have at least $1 to $1.50 in Etsy fees plus shipping supplies. Also, there's shipping costs. On my shop, I do offer the $35 and over order shipping. So if someone orders $40, I eat the cost of the shipping. Now there's also the cost. I have to also the $6 item. So let's knock $1.50 off for Etsy fees, payment processing fees, listing fee, and then income tax on the profit. Also knock off the amount for, again, my taxes, also all of the bookkeeping I have to do, also the time I have to take to pack and ship the item. And you can see how that number, while at first sounds really great, once you attribute for all of the costs, the actual profit margin is pretty small, especially for smaller orders and that sort of thing. The money I have to pay an accountant to keep track of the books, the QuickBooks subscription, all of the other stuff. I mean, there's a lot to it. Also, I have to get business licenses, all of that sort of thing. I can really see how quickly, once you attribute to all these factors, and plus you factor in the rising costs of all these things, you're either going to have to either stop doing what you're doing, or you're going to have to raise prices across the board. Myself, for my own shop, I'm going to have to probably raise, especially for the fabric prices, I'm going to have to increase those because I'm going to be paying more for fabric. Now, I was lucky. Sometimes my fabric manufacturers that I buy from offer some deals on the fabric, like it'll be on sale. So I did just purchase some more fabric from that peppermint line, the Christmas line that I offered this past year. I got a great deal on the fabric, so I'm going to be offering some bundles at a good price just because I was able to get the fabric at a good price. So I'm really trying to do what I can to make sure my prices are competitive. At this point, again, the shop is just about breaking even. I can't eat a lot of refunds, cancellations, that sort of thing. Really, the free shipping on my shop is like the sale. So I can't really do a lot of sales on the items because I'm already not making really any money on the shop as it is. And I'm going to be doing a more detailed breakdown once my tax stuff is done. I just submitted everything to my CPA, so I should be finding out in about a month or so what's going on. All of these costs, man, I mean, they're tough. Oh, and also I did get a really interesting comment. I posted this in the community tab on the channel. One very nice lady wrote that she always, when she's on Etsy, she looks to see if the shop has their own standalone website, and she tries to support them there as well, just knowing about all of the fees and stuff. So if you are a consumer and you do want to help that shop out, that is something you could do. I want to share my thoughts too on what I think Etsy should do. I have some opinions. If I could wave a magic wand and I was in charge, I would not spend $600 on marketing. I've said that a little earlier. I think that's for the most part a waste of money. I would put that money instead towards actual real seller support, like having real people. I also really think their AI needs to improve. They have a lot of false flags, and it seems like it makes a lot of mistakes when it's sweeping these stores for violations. It's also clearly not catching a lot of the stores that are actually violating the Etsy policies, like all of the drop shippers or people selling stuff that really should be like an Amazon store. Another point of contention for sellers is the controversial Etsy offsite ads. So let me bring this up. What this is you can turn these on if you are a smaller seller, or you can turn these off. They are optional. So Etsy advertises various listings throughout the internet, and here is kind of everywhere they advertise, like Google, other sites, stuff like that. And if you make a sale from one of these offsite ads, you have to pay, I believe it's between 12 and 15% fees total for the whole sale. That's quite a lot of money if you make a sale via these offsite ads. Now, if you make less than $10,000 on Etsy in the past year's 365 days, the offsite ads are optional. However, if you make more than $10,000 USD on Etsy in the last year, you are required to participate for the lifetime of your shop. Now, they do claim that you get a discount advertising fee, but I think a lot of these sellers would rather not be required to participate in offsite ads. So that kind of sucks, and that is something that a lot of sellers really hate about Etsy. And let me see if I can find the rate. I think it was, I want to say it's 15%. Oh yeah, 15% if you are putting them on and it's optional, but you get a rate of 12% if the offsite ads are required for your shop. But again, a lot of people would rather not get that traffic than have to pay 12 to 15% for the offsite ad sale. So that is something that if I was in charge of Etsy, I would just make this completely optional. I think it's a little unfair to sellers that you're requiring higher volume shops. And honestly, $10,000 isn't even that high volume of a shop. If I double my sales, I will be at that point, and I guess I have to pay offsite ad fees forever. So that's not something I would be looking forward to. So I would make these permanently optional. I think a lot of sellers just don't like this. And in fact, I've turned this off for my own shop, so I do not have this on. Now, they do say your offsite ad fee will never exceed $100 USD. Isn't that comforting? I like how they're trying to make this sound like it's a positive, but man, 12 to 15% of your total sale, not even off of your profit, that's quite a chunk of change for you getting a sale. And again, a lot of sellers don't even really want the sale because they like, for some people that just cuts off any profit they have. For some items that might even be a loss. And also, what if your shop one year does $10,000, so you have to have it forever, but then the next year you only do $4,000? I think it's pretty crappy that they require you to do it for life, but baby, hey, that's just me. And of course, I think raising the transaction fee from 5 to 6.5% is a mistake. I don't understand why they need to raise that fee, especially since, according to them, they made more money than ever. Are there any other areas where they can cut costs? I know a lot of corporations are going to a more work from home model. Wouldn't they mean you need like less office space? There's less overhead. Obviously, due to COVID, there's been a lot less business travel. And I used to work for some companies that honestly did some business trips that were pretty unnecessary. It's like the person just wanted to say they could go to, wherever. The company would spend way too much money on nice hotels and food. And I do think a lot of this business travel, one thing I think COVID has shown us is that there's a lot of pork in those areas. And a lot of these business meetings you do in person over a fancy steak dinner could easily be done just on a Zoom call or whatever. I do really hope that companies would, instead of raising the prices for consumers, first look to see if there's any areas with excess spending that maybe they can reduce. Like, what is wrong with trying to do that? Instead of trying to raise prices towards the sellers on your platform that are already having their own struggles with the rising postage, rising costs of supplies, and things like the IRS $600 threshold. So that's just my take. I just wanted to do a quick video and explain where I'm coming from. Let me know down below in the comments, do you have any thoughts on this 6.5% for the transaction fees? And also, if you were in charge at Etsy, what kind of changes would you put into place, or what would you do to try to make the platform better for everyone? I want to know down below. And also, if there's any other follow-up videos you're interested in, I welcome suggestions. And I just wanted to do something talking about this because it's a really big deal, because so many of us either buy or sell on Etsy. Anyways, I'm Jen with the Sewing Report. I'll see you guys again in the next video. And remember, whatever you're doing, make it fun.